There's the funky slide guitar music that comes out every Monday through Friday live on the Evil Lippy Network. YouTube, check us out, subscribe, type in IE Newswire, Roy Blecker. You get my nice, smiling, shining face rolling all across the airwaves. Of course, we'll turn the Mighty Met KMT 1490 AM as we usually do at the bottom of the hour. And Susan Shelley should be on then to go over the news of the day and her great columns that are in the Southern California News Group. Hit on the paying votes for ballots. We know our election system, every aspect of it, is as crooked as the day is freaking long. And we'll get into that. Some of the Gavin Newsom. It's got the Nevada governor up his rear end about all this gas prices going up. And he's not blaming Trump, he's blaming Gavin Newsom like the public is. Finally, getting all this stuff about the latest poll numbers and such. But as the lead story of the day, Iran plotting drone attacks in California. The FBI warns. Let's see. Give you the preliminary CABC7 report. Here we go. Maybe. We thought we had it. Here it is now.
FBI warned police departments across California over the past few days that Iran could retaliate for American attacks by launching drones at the West Coast. ABC reviewed an alert distributed at the end of February that reads, quote, "We recently acquired information that as of early February 2026, Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland, specifically against unspecified targets in California, in the event that the U.S. had conducted strikes against Iran. We have no additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of this alleged attack."
So we got the gobbledygook from ABC 10. What they failed to mention, and the ABC story that followed, which put all this stuff out, an uncorroborated report suggested that unidentified Mexican cartel leaders had authorized attacks using UAS drones, carrying explosives against U.S. law enforcement and U.S. military personnel along the U.S.-Mexico border, according to a September 25th bulletin reviewed by the ABC News. This type of attack against U.S. personnel and interests inside the United States would be unprecedented, but it exemplifies a plausible scenario, although the cartels specifically avoid actions that would result in unwanted attention and unwanted U.S. authorities. So, what is it? Were they making deals with the Iranians, making deals when this stuff was being rumored earlier or late last year with the cartels to attack California specifically if the U.S. struck Iran? Newsom said he's been informed from the feds and they are going to protect our communities, which what else is he going to say? Why would you believe that turd for 1 second anyway? He's such a putz. But whether or not they're going to go with the story, and they declined, FBI, the White House declined comment on this ABC report, which was picked up by the LA Times. So this part of it was really stunning. We recently acquired information that early February 26th, Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles from unidentified vessels off of California, like you heard. Unidentified vessels. That seems to corroborate that the September 2025 report that Iran was working with the cartels to launch attacks at the U.S.-Mexico border. This is all going to be very interesting as it shakes out. Of course, we got whatever Oscars or whatever award shows coming up of that, which is classified as an international event because you got high-profile people from all around the world coming to those award ceremonies. So LA should be on heightened alert. But again, we shall see what parameters this takes, but it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. We'll see how this whole thing shakes out. If Trump is either going to back off of this thing or pull full steam ahead. If he doesn't have a plan to open up the Strait of Hormuz, in my opinion, we need to get the hell out of there. I mean, if we're going to take control of the Strait of Hormuz and make sure that the oil is flowing, then okay, then it has a U.S. national security point to this whole action that's been taken. And shutting off the flow of oil to that is absolutely insane. So we need, in my opinion, we either need to S or get off the pot. Open whatever's got to be done. If we're in there, open up the Strait of Hormuz, get the oil flowing, get the Iranians out of control of that, and then proceed forward with them. If the Iranian people want regime change or whatever, that's their business. We ain't having these tin-horn dictators closing the Panama Canal or the Strait of Hormuz or anything else. And if that's not what our mission is, then we should get the hell out of there. We get to this and much, much more in the next hour or so, or less. I know some would be wishing for less as we go, but we really do. We need to get out of the Strait of Hormuz stuff, and we either need to open that up one way or the other. We need to get out there and let Iran open it up, and we're going to be subject to that, or we're going to get after it and finish the job. I think Trump got talked into this half-baked, trying to be nice again, situation, but it's going to be very telling. He said it, hopefully he holds to the words, we're going to wrap this whole thing up this weekend, and I say none, obviously, too soon. Didn't get to the whole, oh, we're paying for ballot signatures to get things on the ballot. Now we're getting some more information from the J.J. Smith video. Now we have the KCRA3 report from the great Ashley Zavala. Hopefully, here we go.
This investigation centers on this video that is circulating online. It appears to show paid signature collectors in San Francisco offering money to people on the streets if they sign the petitions using other people's voter registration information. This would be a violation of state law. KCRA3's political director Ashley Zavala is here now, so let's start with who's involved.
Yeah, well, this video is raising a lot of flags for folks tonight. These signature gatherers are people who are paid to find registered voters and get those voters to sign petitions, and when they get enough signatures, the proposal lands on the ballot and is presented to you, the voter. It is against the law for anyone to forge someone else's information, but the man who captured the scene on video tells us that's exactly what has been happening in San Francisco.
I get $5 too?
Yeah.
And what is it?
Just sign it.
Just sign it?
Yeah. You ready now? First name is going to be Carol.
San Francisco street videographer J.J. Smith capturing what appears to be a crime on camera. Paid signature gatherers offering people $5 to sign ballot initiative petitions using other people's names and information.
So you heard her say, and it goes on in the J.J. Smith video, oh yeah, this is the name you put down the address. Of course they're getting the vagrants and the druggies, which are probably one and the same down there in San Fran, to sign this thing, to get it on the ballot.
Smith shot and posted this video on Monday.
What I seen shocked me and surprised me because They was literally coaching people, telling them what name to sign and what address to put down there. And what was more shocking than that is they had that information printed out already on an official document.
We've learned the signature collectors in Smith's video were doing so for ballot initiatives backed by billionaires fighting a proposed wealth tax. The measures include proposals to invalidate the tax, require audits, and other tax transparency tools. The campaigns for that are known as Building a Better California and Californians for a More Transparent and Effective Government. Another petition was for a separate campaign for a proposed Retirement and Personal Savings Protection Act. All three campaigns acknowledged their petitions were being carried by these signature gatherers. Today I spoke with representatives for each campaign. All said they were made aware of the video. They're demanding the firm identify these circulators seen in the video and reject their petitions. Campaign officials said the circulators are not directly affiliated with them. They also said they've contacted the appropriate authorities. Smith said none of the proposals were explained to the people in line.
All these people that was lining up for they're down on their luck. I sat there for 2 hours and there was like, man, hundreds.
JJ's being very nice. Down on their luck. Yeah, they're vagrants and junkies. Let's get real with what's happening here. Who's going to stand in line? There was a very long line for this. For that amount of time. For $5 and then commit. I don't know if it's a misdemeanor, but it might, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, falsely signing someone else's name. How many charges? Felony, forgery, who knows how many charges a DA could rack up, not only from the people signing, but the people who are gathering the signatures, times however many signatures they got.
The people just came and went.
To be clear, that's not the first time you've seen those signature collectors essentially out there or in the area?
No, I seen it like 4 days ago. Prior to that, they was out there.
Smith told me as of this moment, the campaigns involved have not reached out to him directly. But to take a step back, campaigns hire signature gathering firms. I'm told for anywhere between $15 to $17 a signature. Those firms then hire people to collect the signatures. We still obviously have several questions tonight, such as why do those signature collectors have voter information and where exactly did they get the extra money to pay people on the street for the
That's a ridiculous amount of money to pay for signatures. We had Susan Shelley on, and I mean, you know, to get 1 million signatures, 5 million, maybe at the low 10 if you really had to hustle, that's $10 a signature. To pay 17, no wonder they're averaging $5 a signature. When you got a line of people going up and you're just having people sign like that or that, you're making quite a bit of bank in an hour. So if you're getting 12 signatures at $15 a crock, that's $180 an hour, plus what you're giving these at $5. So you're getting $120 an hour for getting these signatures. That's pretty good bank. Here, let's finish up with the Ashley report.
apparently forged information?
So, of course, the Secretary of State oversees elections. What is that office saying?
Yeah, so we know that she's definitely investigating because right before our interview with Smith, he told us he had just gotten off the phone with their chief investigator. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Secretary of State's office told us in part that the signature gathering process is an important part of our democracy and those who abuse our system will be held accountable.
Paul Mitchell put out a tweet, and he's the one that drew the map for Prop 50, the gerrymandered to the max redistricting that we're going to be under the congressional elections for here in California. But he said this stuff has been going on. And we've known, most of us on the inside of this stuff have known this crap has been going on. Maybe not this blatant, But then they say, oh, most secure elections, this stuff's on. Honestly, everything we're doing, we're checking this stuff out. Balderdash. How could you be certifying? How could the signatures match? Because they're supposed to. County registrars, Secretary of State, even if they're doing a spot check if there's a lot. See, that's what they're getting at of the spot check. But I don't know how in the hell they could get these things by without lots of people committing fraud, turning their eyes. Oh, yeah, this is okay. Every aspect of our government system is corrupt as heck. Here's JJ's original video. Here's one of them asking for, telling them where to sign, what name to sign. Here we go.
Two of them.
Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna lie, he getting around, so
I get $5 too?
yeah,
And what is it?
just sign it.
Just sign it?
Yeah. You ready now? First name is gonna be Carol, last name Sanderson. This is their address right here. This is the city, Avila Beach. This is the zip code.
So Ashley asked the question where they get the information. They get the information from companies like Paul Mitchell, which is the VP, I think, head of Political Data Inc. They'll give you walking. Let you go to the voter registration office and get voter registration. If you don't want to, if you want just the raw numbers, Paul Mitchell's firm, Political Data Inc., breaks it down into, high propensity voters and a lot of technical stuff. And if you're not into elections, you don't give a crap about. But yeah, that's how they get the information. That's no big secret, Ash. I mean, she probably doesn't know. She's probably never been in the inside of that particular process. But mind you, your voter registration is public. Everyone has, under the California Public Records Act, FOIA and everything else, everyone has a right to look at, so they're public access records. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all shakes them out. Let's get back into the archives from 10 years ago today. Posted, Richard Ryder put it out there. But this is why the refineries are closing. This is from 10 years ago. You can see I posted it. The action of the South Coast Air Quality Management Board ousting the director seems to have caught the ire of the California State leader, Kevin De Leon, as he has planned to add 3 new seats, 1 health expert, and 2 environmental justice members. This action is brilliant if the plan is to kill off Southern and all of California. This action would really drive a stake in the heart of ever-declining business that is left in California. That was a light off, and you see Richard Ryder's commentary. That was the light off of politicians putting in the actions to shut down the refineries that you see today, to the culmination of almost all of them. This was in response, and this was in Cal Watchdog by Chris Reed. Democratic politicians and environmental groups are scrambling to reverse decisions made by South Coast Air Quality Management Board, which is now controlled by Republicans. One of the last things we had control of. For the first time in memory, the agency oversees air pollution control reduction of that. The 13-member board forced out AQMD Director Barry Wallerstein, long criticized by business interests as hostile and indifferent to economic downside and heavy regulation. In December, the GOP bloc passed on to staff recommendations that adopted rules on refiners and other heavy industries that have been lobbied by the Western States Association. So the Republicans were trying to reverse the stupid South Coast air quality regulations that were shutting down refineries for the past 10 years before that. We had went from like 45 down to about 20 10 years ago when this came out. So Kevin De Leon, as you see pictured up there, which was leader of the Senate, then got ousted by the Democratic Socialists from the last election in LA City Council. He led an effort to start stacking the board so they could get the regulations to shut down the refineries with the climate change con and everything else going on. Mind you, Moonbeam Brown is governor at this time, but Gavin Newsom is lieutenant governor. Of course, the eco-freak tree hugger nuts started suing the Center for Biological Diversity, Communities for a Better Environment, Sierra Club, Natural Resources Defense Council, all filed lawsuit. With the Republicans, so some people with some sanity of thought were trying to stop 10 years ago the refineries from closing down in California. Of course, they got sued and legislated out. As the people of California continued to hose themselves. And now we're down to 7, possibly 5 if Chevron pulls out as they've threatened, 4 if Marathon, who's threatened to pull out. We had the story for you 10 years ago. I wish you would have paid attention. More people, a majority, would have paid attention then what was going on. This makes it all the more imperative that we get the top 2 in. Steve and Chad in June 2nd. And we elect a Republican governor in the state of California. New California polls come out. Now it's got the Emerson poll, which is left, but not too kooky left. But I'm a little shaky on this one. As you see, Swalwell went up 3 points. Hilton went down 4. Bianco went down 3. Steyer went up 2. Porter down 2. Villaraigosa down 2. Baccaria 1. Undecideds went down a little bit. But this poll would have you believe. And most of the bulk of the change came off of Hilton and Bianco. The Emerson College poll would have you believe that the Hilton and Bianco support went basically to Swalwell and Steyer because they have the bulk of the votes. Porter has a little bit, but that's inconsequential. They said, well, yeah, his Democratic support went up from 23 to 27%. That would not cause him to raise that much and not cause Hilton and Bianco. There's not enough votes in that percentage to rise him up that much, even if you got everyone. So again, they're trying to convince us, or this poll is stating, that, as I read it, most of the Hilton and Bianco decline, 4 and 2 points, went to Steyer and Swalwell, because that's about exactly what they went up. They went up 6. Bianco and Hilton went down 7. And there's no there's nowhere else for the Hilton and Bianco vote to go. The Hilton and Bianco vote is not going to go to Eric Swalwell, Tom Steyer, Psycho Chick Porter, Tony Villari Laragosa, Javier Baccaria. It just isn't in the cards. So I'm a little sus on that point. It dropped Paul Mitchell's numbers down a couple of points, but it's still right around 25, 1 in 4 chance of a Republican coming out on his complicated model. But still, no Democrat is above 50% of odds of moving into the top 2, where Steve and Chad are still 60% plus as being likely to move into the top 2. And then obviously Porter, which was like 20, and the others have been dropping. So they got some deep problems. I'm a little sus of this poll. Again, they lean left, but they're not, at least historically, they've not been too much. The problem is they don't give you the full crosstabs as far as the demo makeups they did and how they reweighted it and everything else. So that's where you can, let's say, manipulate play games, skew the poll a little bit to make it read more like the outcome you're trying to do. They're desperately, the rats are in panic. That's why you're probably going to see more of this. And then they're going to have to say, well, you're going to have to coalesce behind you, Swalwell, the spy Swalwell, or the sordid Steyer, or Psycho Chick Porter, or whomever they're going to go. It's going to be a very interesting flop. Newsom's approval went up 5 points. He was actually underwater 1 last month. He went up. He's now 45-40. With gas prices going up and everything, again, it's a little sus on that, given that we've had all the stuff compiling on about Gavin Newsom. But we shall see how that other issues roll out. Maybe we'll get into the LA mayor poll was interesting. Maybe we'll talk to Susan Shelley. She's got her hand on the pulse of LA pretty darn good. So maybe she's got some thoughts on that. That was more of a surprising poll of that. I may change, if we see some more action like this, I may change my mind. I was thinking Bass is going to win this 50% in June, even after burning down the Palisades. Even if what's coming out in the Emerson College poll, even though it's skewed, but they wouldn't necessarily have to skew this one. If anything, you would think they would be skewing it for Bass.
30 seconds.
That one was fairly surprising. I wasn't expecting that coming down the pike. As Jesse said, we'll be joining the Mighty Med KMET here in a few seconds. Hopefully we'll have Susan Shelley on, and we'll get her thoughts on some of this stuff and her great column of the week. It will be so much fun, you will not be able to stand it.
5 seconds, here we go, and Susan is on the line.
You got it. I noticed Jesse didn't stamp my little rendition.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the 4-inch AM band. Join your vast video audience on the Evil Epi Network YouTube. Check us out. Subscribe, type in iNewsWire Roy Bleckert. You'll see my nice smiling, shining face. We had the big revelation of the FBI reports that we might be get hit by a drone attack here in Southern California. Now we're finding out that the reports, and back in September of last year, we find out the Iranians were working with the cartels to possibly do some strikes down by the border. Then they come out with this report. Now they're saying there's no credible evidence, this and that, and couching it a little bit and doing that. But who knows? This whole enchilada will really... It's never take anything off the table, so be watching. If they're not nervous, they're not telling us to get in bomb shelters or anything. So just go about I'm just going to go about my daily life and not worry about it. But again, it's been making the rounds a lot on that. The whole explosion of them paying for signatures to get on 3 ballot measures that broke out by the report, the video released by J.J. Smith, and we had the KCRA 3 report by Ashley Zavala up there detailing what's going on there. Along with election fraud and getting in this stuff and everything else that's going on, is there not a component in any of our governments anywhere that is just totally fraudulent, crooked, screwing us over at every point? It's beginning to look that way, but who knows of that. Gas prices going through the roof. Nevada governor's pissed at Newsom because they get most of their gas from here. We're closing down all the refineries. Nevada's paying more than they should for gas, and they're going to even get hung out to dry worse. So all the stuff that we had 10 years ago, when me and Richard Ryder put it out there, and Cal Watchdog, 10 years ago, when the Republicans, the last time, one of the last vestiges they had control of the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and they were reversing the refineries, the stupid regulations, because we went down from like 45 to 25 10 years ago. We still had about 25 left. And they went and started stacking the board, and the eco-freaks started suing back and forth. And then here we are down to 7, possibly 5, possibly 4, and then it's going to be 3, 2, 1. But as we usually do on a Wednesday, we have the, let me get the frog out of my throat, the famed editorial writer columnist for the Press Enterprise, San Bernardino's Sun, Inland Daily Bulletin, Redlands Daily Facts. More important to me, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, Susan Shelley. Welcome to iNewsWire with Roy.
Thank you, Roy. Great to be with you.
I just put out there, and just happened to be on this day 10 years ago, we were reporting on, you with Cal Watchdog and Richard Ryder and stuff, of how the Republicans were reversing the regulations to try and save the 25 refineries we had at the time. Kevin De Leon was president of the Senate. They're going to stack the board, moonbeam of that, and the eco freaks are suing. And here we are 10 years later, we're down to 7, going on 0, and gas is shooting from 5, probably going to $10 a gallon here in California. Susan Shelley.
It's a really serious problem. And the governor and CARB have been warned. The legislative leaders have been warned in letters from Chevron, from Marathon Petroleum, from a bunch of assembly members who, by the way, voted for it. So a lot we care what they think at this point. And even by the governor of Nevada, that this could be the end of the oil industry in California. And what does that mean? It means that we have to import everything. Gasoline, oil, aviation fuel, we have to import everything. And if there's a supply disruption, if there's something that happens where you need something suddenly, there is no suddenly when it's coming across the ocean. So this is just irrational and very dangerous, and all because they're just committed to this idea that we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in California, no matter what. and they've monetized that system, so now they're relying on the money for all of their little goodies on their wish list, including the bullet train. So they're worried about, well, how do we preserve the revenue, and how do we cut greenhouse gases? And affordability is not even on their list of things to worry about. And this is from the law. You know, CARB is only doing what the legislature told it to do. So this has to be changed by the people who are currently complaining about it in the legislature. They have to change it.
That's why elections matter. And this is why we're in the condition we are in, because we have one party rule statewide. 75% of both of our legislatures, most of our city council, school boards, county board of supervisors, sewer cleaning commission, and everything else in the state are not Democratic, they're kook left stupid. And we have allowed us to get to this point. We have voted ourselves into that. And we're gonna be the ones, if we're gonna save it, to vote ourselves out of it. That's why these elections, especially June with the primary coming up in the governor's race and all that, which has the ramifications going on in that. But if you want to stop this, yeah, we're just collecting signatures, you know, we're fraudulently putting stuff on the ballot. Well, entities like Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association got to go out there and work their rear ends off legitimately to get stuff on the ballot. This is the system we got to turn around, I believe, Susan.
Well, definitely. Now, this deal with paying for the signatures, not really clear who did that. The people who were at that table had several different petitions, which means that the whole thing was being run by one of the petition companies, and who at the petition company was hired to hire those people. There's like layers of protection for whoever did the initiative. But somebody gave that woman the voter rolls. Somebody gave that woman voter data so that she could tell people, your first name is Carol, and we'll give you $5 to sign. Here's the address you should write down. That part is very concerning because somebody signed for those voter rolls, and you're not allowed to use that information improperly. And that's certainly improper, to use it to have people pretend to be someone else. So that's, I think, where you could have a genuine investigation and even an arrest over that misuse of the voter rolls. It also makes you wonder how often that happens with voter impersonation during an election, where someone has the voter rolls and they say, go in and vote, your name is Carol.
That's why I say this calls into question everything. I mean, you know, like you say, they're buying that. In the KCRA 3 report, one of them was the tech bros trying to get the tax off or whatever they're trying to do, in a couple other companies. They were paying $15 to $17 for the signatures of that, which is completely ridiculous. So yeah, if you're giving $5 and you're getting 15, 17, and you're getting $12 an hour, you're netting probably $120 an hour gathering these signatures between the person doing it and the signature gathering company. This is flat out fraud. Who knows how much has this been going? And Paul Mitchell put out in a tweet in Ashley Zvala's report, I think, this stuff has been going on for a long time of that. So, and I've been aware of some of it, but you know, you never have any evidence to start proving it. Well, now, good from the great video J.J. Smith put out, now we're getting some good evidence of doing that. And, you know, like, of all this stuff, you've talked about the voter fraud. How do we trust any of this stuff, Susan, if every day between, you know, yesterday, CBS News with the reports on, you know, when they said when Dr. Oz came out here and he said, you know, there's a bunch of fraud going on with the hospice. Say, no, you're a racist, yada, yada, yada. Well, CBS News comes out with reports saying the same thing, probably even worse. How do we trust anything, Susan?
Well, you're absolutely right. And there is too much fraud. And one of the reasons there's too much fraud is because the government does too much. You know, part of the reason that there's bribery or extortion or campaign contributions for influence is because the government has so much power over everybody's business. And that creates a situation where you can't get the money out of politics. If the government was sticking to its constitutional limits and doing less, we'd be better off. But that's not happening. So money is involved in everything, and when you talk about things that are on the ballot, there again, it's billions of dollars at stake in all of these different measures that are passing, and the incentive for fraud is so high, and the cost of doing it is so low, and the chance of getting caught is so low. So for all these reasons, there's no reason to assume that our elections are clean, and we really do need to clean it up to the extent that it's possible.
Switching gears, and I wanted to address this because you got your pulse on LA pretty good. New poll came out by Emerson College, which is fairly decent college poll. They do obviously tilt left, but they're not total, or haven't been late, for a while. They haven't been totally off the rails, although I question a little bit of their governor's poll coming out, but that's subject for a different day. They came out with a poll on the Los Angeles mayor, and I might have to change my direction, because the way I was figuring, even though Karen Bass burnt down the Palisades and I was figuring she might win this thing with 50% more in the primary in June. But the Emerson College poll was very interesting. Karen Bass at 20, Spencer Pratt at 10, Nithya Raman 9, and a couple others in single digits. Not sure they put 50, but it's really, if you rounded it, it was 51%. More people in Los Angeles don't want any of them, it seems like, in that. But Karen Bass only at 20% at this, and a 2/3 negative approval rating on that. If we can get it, if you can get the LA mayor's race, if we can get Karen Bass not to win or not get to 50% and get it in a runoff in Spencer Pratt, there's just a possibility Spencer Pratt might win this thing in November. Well, what say you, Susan?
Well, if the runoff in November is Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass, there's at least a chance that she'll be in handcuffs before the ballots drop for the general election. And if that happens, then he's got a chance to win. But really, if you look at the voter registration and the voting history in the city of Los Angeles, not the county, but the city, which is even more so, it's pretty far uphill for someone who is associated with the Republican Party. Even though it's a nonpartisan race and there won't be an R next to his name, it's pretty tough for someone with a Republican affiliation to win in Los Angeles. That's pretty tough. I mean, if it was handcuffs on one of them, maybe, but even so, pretty tough. You might get the person in the handcuffs elected anyway. That's how bad it is in Los Angeles for Republican candidates.
Well, if that's the case, I would say the cuffs need to be on Spencer Pratt, because that worked out pretty good for Donald J. Once they put him in cuffs, heck, his popularity went through the roof. But again, it surprised me a lot. I mean, I was of the same opinion you. I figured with no really high profile candidate really challenging her, which, I was figuring, she's going to win this thing in June of that. But if she doesn't get, and the rule of thumb has always been, if an incumbent doesn't get 50% in that, no matter what, they're in trouble. And her polling at this rate, even if she doubles where she's at now, she's only going to be at 40%. So she's going to have a challenger, and it looks like it's coming down to Spencer Pratt and Nithya Raman. And if Spencer Pratt challenges that, I mean, Nithya Raman versus Karen Bass is no real choice. I mean, you're just getting dumber on that. But I'm saying, just looking at this poll, I'm saying there's a 10% chance right now Spencer Pratt could be mayor of LA. Susan Shelley.
Well, I think that would be great. I think that would shake things up, and he's very intense, and he's working very hard, and his heart's in the right place. So I think for all those reasons, that would be a good thing. However, the situation in Los Angeles is that people are running at Karen Bass from her left. There's someone from the DSA who's a candidate, and then there's also Nithya Raman, who's a DSA, Democratic Socialists of America candidate. So they're running at her from her left. Spencer Pratt running from the right. She could definitely, I agree with you that she's not going to be able to get to 50% plus one vote in June. That does not look like there's any way that she could win this without the general election. But it's hard for me to see that she doesn't win re-election. It's hard for me to see that Nithya Raman could beat her or any of the other socialist candidates. And while I really hope that somebody sensible, there's another candidate also, I think a high-tech executive, I don't recall his name at this moment, but there's someone else who's running who could self-fund and do a lot of advertising and put a dent in Karen Bass. So definitely, I think this is going to November, but if I was betting on the prediction markets, as much as I think it's terrible for Los Angeles, I think Karen Bass could be reelected. Ugh.
Yeah, well, the odds are still that, but we'll see how it shakes out on that. Your column this week, Trump isn't starting a war with Iran, he's ending one, Susan Shelley.
Everything depends on your perspective. If you only look back to 2 weeks ago, maybe it looks like Donald Trump is the aggressor in this situation, but if you start the clock in 1979, when the Iranian revolution, Islamist revolution took place, and then took hostages from the American embassy and held them for more than a year, if you start the clock then, that was an act of war against the United States. And from that day to this, there have been, according to the White House, more than 40 attacks against Americans, killing and wounding Americans by the Iranian regime or its funded proxies. And all of these attempts to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon, talks, monitors, UN oversight, none of it amounted to anything. And they were just marching forward toward a nuclear bomb and this incredible military buildup. What an achievement for the U.S. military, commanded by Donald Trump, to take out that military buildup in 2 weeks, just to take it out. The Navy, the Air Force, the missiles, the missile launchers, the missile manufacturing facilities, the drone manufacturing facilities, the mine-laying ships that were trying to make the Straits of Hormuz impassable and dangerous. What an achievement to knock out all of that in 2 weeks, because now it doesn't matter so much who runs that country from our national security perspective, because it doesn't have any weaponry left, and it can't threaten the region. And that's incredibly important. Now, for the people of Iran, they need a democratic government. They're going to have to do that themselves. We can't impose a democratic government on them. We haven't had very good success with that. But if they want their historical national identity back, and they want a democratic government, this is a tremendous opportunity for change.
My whole contention on this thing right now is, you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz. If that's the big enchilada in this, because if we don't have some sort of operational control of that and, get the oil and the ships flowing through that, this thing could take a turn for the worse. Oil prices will shoot back up again. If they don't have some sort of plan to get that in motion, if they haven't knocked out their military enough to do that or whatever, and that's way above my pay grade of that, I have no idea if they do, but them not getting control of that is the biggest thing, the biggest concern of mine, because if we don't get that waterway opened up, that's going to create economic havoc across the whole world, and that's not going to be good for anybody, Susan Shelley.
Well, that's certainly true. But one thing you can say for President Trump is that he put a lot of things in place before this started. Pay attention also to the dog that didn't bark, as they said in the Sherlock Holmes stories. Where's Russia? Are they helping Iran? We haven't seen much. Where's China? Are they helping Iran? Nope. Where's North Korea? Are they helping Iran? Nope. So look at all the things that were put in place, and all of the Gulf states that have been on the same side as Israel. Think about what an achievement that is. And even the Israeli opposition, which is normally very vocal, there's always opposition in Israel. Everybody seems to be on the same page here, and that doesn't happen by accident. So I think you have to give this administration a lot of credit, militarily and diplomatically, and in terms of leadership. You have to give it a lot of credit for really executing a plan brilliantly here to take out a military threat that has been destabilizing the region and threatening the world for decades. Now it's gone, and that's a good thing.
It is. It's these things. These foreign, deals are just very complicated of doing that, and you can't necessarily make an assessment of what's going on in the first week or two of something like this. But my contention is they need to get something stabilized for that of getting the economic world, and I agree with you. then leave it up to the people of Iran to do whatever they got to do or not do, or however they want their government structured, is up to them. But however they're going to do it, they need to get that waterway opened up and calm the economic fears of going on. Because the last thing we need is a round of inflation going into the midterms or something coming into that. Not only what we got going on here in especially in California, we got the stupid governor and the legislature and AQMND jacking the gas prices up enough. We don't need any help over here for any reason of that. Got about a minute left. Tell them why they should join Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Go.
Well, it's an election year, and your money is on the ballot up and down the state of California, in the sense that they want to take it from you and raise your sales taxes and raise business taxes and raise parcel taxes and all kinds of taxes. So you want to be on the mailing list for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association so you can keep track of what's coming and how to stop it. hjta.org is the website where you can sign up for free email alerts, and then also while you're there, be a member. Join HJTA for just $15 a year and stay informed and strengthen your voice in California, because the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is fighting for you in the legislature, in the courts, and on the ballot, where we expect the Local Taxpayer Protection Act to save Prop 13 to be on the November ballot this year. We're very excited. It's having its signatures verified as we speak. Very excited that that's going to happen. A huge accomplishment for all the people of California. Join HJTA and be a part of it. HJTA.org.
Thanks for being on, Susan. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks so much, Roy.
You got it. Susan Shelley, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and columnist extraordinaire for the Southern California News Group. But again, this is what's absolutely fascinating about this whole California and the gasoline situation and everything that's going on there. It's Nevada governor fires a warning shot at Gavin Newsom over oil crisis, real world consequences. And no true words, as they say, have ever been spoken. Lombardo, the governor over there, he's in a pickle because almost 90% of their gas, or close to it, comes from California. It's refined here, goes up to Nevada. He says, we've been paying more. The only thing is they don't pay the extra almost $1 a gallon climate change charge on the refinery. That's why their gas is about 75 cents a gallon cheaper than it is in California. But they're hosed, and now what if California doesn't have enough gas for California, guess who's really going to be on the short end of the stick? Good old Nevada, and as they say, people look out for their own best interest. And like Lombardo's saying, and he penned a letter over to Newsom saying, hey, Charlie, get these refineries open. This has been years. We have put years and decades of self-abuse on ourselves here in California. We voted for these. We've let the emotional, save the whales. Don't cut down the trees. That whole mentality is why we're at. Vagrants getting paid $5, yes, sign whatever name on this to get this petition on. It's been absolutely 5,000% ridiculous. But in the end, we've done this all to ourselves. And it's about time we stop, cutting our own selves. Maybe top 2 in June. Maybe Spencer Pratt. That would be along with getting rid of Buffoon Bass, that would be the ultimate chop to that turncoat Rick Caruso, who spent $100 million and lost to Bass, but then now is backing Matt Mahan, who will have some more stuff on his guys, Gary Tan. Hopefully we'll get to the real story behind that. You know, they're trying to promote Matt Mahan as a O-line, not completely stupid Democrat. Other than his stance on Prop 36 coming out for that, he's pretty much a tutti-frutti nutcase, just like the rest of the icky eight that are running. He's one and the same. There is no difference. Except for that's like, there's just difference on the margins. And I mean, that's probably the only thing that separates them from the others in the icky eight. They're for all this stuff. They love Scott Wiener and the whole gender bending, boys and girls sports and bathrooms, and the whole idiocracy that's been going on. That'll do it for today. We usually say at this time, mandatory you're back here in 23 hours. Why? You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya.
All right. Have a great night.
You're learning button pushing from me, huh?
What happened?
I said you're learning button pushing from me.
Yeah, I'm pushing them too fast.
See you tomorrow.
Later.